Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12 noon on Friday, the 27th of November. Very warm welcome to everyone. I am absolutely delighted to be welcoming a very special guest on this week's episode of Lessons in Leadership. I'd like to welcome Penny Power.
Hello, gorgeous
Penny
to be
Power. So delighted to have you here, Penny. And I've invited Penny. I've known Penny for many, many years. We first met during Academy and Black Star back in the early noughties, I think it would be, and I'm also participating on Penny's mastermind at the moment. So I'm really thrilled to have Penny here because, from my point of view, she has been in business and been an entrepreneur for many, many years and has so many lessons to learn about the highs and the lows of business and being a leader. And I think she's got lots and lots of things to share, particularly around the mental health aspects of leadership today. So very warm welcome to you, Penny. It's really great to have you here.
It's great to be here. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you, and I'm trying to contain myself here. Just so to kick off, really, we'd just like to hear a bit more about, because there'll be people watching who will know you, but there'll be people who don't know you. So it would be really good to hear just a sort of summary of your journey and some of the ups and downs that you've had that have brought you now to this place of business is personal, which is what it's all about for you now.
Oh, the temptation here is for me to grab a sofa and lie down with a glass of wine. I always love our conversations, but they're so therapeutic, Mary, so I don't go on too long. So I never imagined I would be an entrepreneur. That's the first thing. And I called myself an accidental entrepreneur for quite a while. Thomas, my husband, is the entrepreneur, I always felt. And there's a reason, I'll explain, I'm sure, as we share our journey about why that is. So I went into business at 19 in IT. I didn't want to be in business. I wanted to do a degree in psychology and do other things, but business got me. 1983, the technology industry was exploding with the PC on the desk. It was a very exciting time. I joined a company where my boss was extremely willing to let me be myself, and he let me really explore who I was in business. And I think that was really powerful because I didn't suit the natural sort of business way. I wasn't driven by money or sales, and I was a bit unusual, but I did well. But it wasn't till so that was when I was 19, and then when I was 28, I had Hannah, and I was determined to stay at home with Hannah and then the two boys. You and I know that the corporate world wasn't as forgiving about having babies back then, 28 years ago. So it was really black or white. Do you stay in the corporate world or do you see your children? I think it really was like that then. And so that was the impetus for me to start exploring doing things for myself. And fortunately, I had got a good reputation in that industry, and I had a few opportunities to do some interim work. The Academy came about when the youngest was 6 months old. So there was Hannah 5 and Ross was 3 and TJ was 6 months old. And the internet was exploding. And I was really interested in the emotional aspect of that. And the fact that, it's going to explode. I wasn't really excited that people would be able to sell through a different channel. I always think business finds its way to sell. Whatever the climate is, it finds its way. But what really was interesting me was the loneliness and the isolation that it could create, because Thomas by then had sold his business and he was working for himself, and he's a massive connector, really loves people. Yeah. And I also saw this trend that a lot of people see, where you go into delivery for a client, you don't have time to do any more selling, it drops off, and then you have to start selling. And that's why a lot of businesses go up and down. But he was a natural networker, and I came up with the idea of Academy, which is the first social network for business in the world. But what I really came up with was a platform for Thomas to be able to network online, so that that's what I thought I was building.
But I want to acknowledge what an innovation Academy was, because it predates LinkedIn, it predated Facebook. It was the first social network in that respect. So it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was. And, it's funny. I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody about culture, and I was explaining the culture of our business and how we run communities. So that's very important to me. And he said, Penny, I want to give you a lesson in this. And I said, oh, go on. He was a behavioral change guy, so I could learn a lot from him. And he said, culture is what you do. Climate is how it feels. And I like that. My new thing, actually.
Yes.
So climate, you know, it was really important to me building Academy that it had clearly defined values and how you should act. But the climate, as this chap David taught me, was really important to me because it had to feel good. And it had to nourish you and energize you and help you grow. And so it was very much about friendship in business. And I think, you know, if I roll it forward to the tragic day when it all came to an end 14 years later in 2012, we weren't really disrupted by technology. We were disrupted by investment because we couldn't get the investment LinkedIn and Facebook had.
Yeah.
But it was the climate that we were disrupted by. The people not enough people were looking for that feeling that Academy gave them.
Right. Okay. So there weren't enough people around who wanted the climate that you were providing and the culture you were providing. How things have moved on, I think. Completely. Yeah.
I mean, at 56, if I had the energy of a 33-year-old again.
Yeah.
In my own little way, Thomas and I do it now. I mean, gorgeous that you talked about our mastermind, and that's beautiful because I think, I mean, you know, I know we're going to get into the subject of leadership. To me, you know, the masterminds, for example, and running a community it's not about you being the guru or the master. It's about you creating a culture and a climate where other people are the masters. And you've taught me so much in the mastermind, and you know, having people that have all got that growth mindset, as you talk about, that where they want to learn and they never believe they're the finished product. That's what we wanted to create. I feel the social networks have gone down the line of everybody feeling that they have to be the finished product, the perfect thing. And that's what's a great shame. That's what I'm sad was taken away from us, because we had something quite different.
So something about the whole person, not just the front of the person or the ego of the person, which often gets paraded on social media. What you're interested in is actually engaging with the whole person, flaws and all, because actually that's how we can stay on that growth of development or that journey of development, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I used to be quite comfortable with all my flaws, and then I think this could happen to leaders, and I was put into leadership role that was far too tough for me, and accelerated far too fast. You know, these people that get fast tracked in organizations, you know, it was a phenomenal experience to suddenly find yourself 4 years later after the idea, being on the front of the Daily Mail or the Express, or being asked to speak all over the world, and suddenly having to be this authority and this incredible OBE, this incredible entrepreneur. And inside I wasn't. And it's not that I had imposter syndrome. I genuinely wasn't. You know, there was no way that my skill set had caught up with what was expected of me. It was terrifying.
Okay. So tell me a bit more then about how your skill set has developed and how you have caught up with yourself, because how you are with me when I come across you is you're very congruent in what you're delivering in your business and who you are as a person now. So that's a really interesting thing to explore, I think, is how did you catch up with yourself in that way?
I think I had to do a bit of an audit, because the thing is, what happened with the Academy, my identity got very linked to this big global entrepreneur, but the reality, which is the difference between your identity and truth, that gap, the reality was that Thomas and I were financially struggling hugely. We had been left in massive debt after Academy, and we'd lost our identity. And some people listening to this might be fearing their jobs, and they may be very aligned to the identity of that job or their own business or whatever. And so we went into the wilderness for about 5 years. Thomas is a non-exec director. I started another company. I think some of my values were driven more by scarcity at that stage, which I am forgiving myself for that. But, you know, we had 3 kids at expensive schools. You know, we didn't live in a cheap area of the world to survive. And we had gone into massive debt, and, you know, managing the family needs and then the business needs. And again, I almost took myself into a very accelerated experience again, straight after Academy, when I built Digital Youth Academy as an idea, by then I had built a brand, and how important personal brand is to me. And so my brand was linked to digital and the importance of digital. And I started this new business that brought a digital apprenticeship to market that didn't exist. But when I went into that business, it was a smaller business. There was a lot expected of me. The investors that invested in me probably didn't realize I didn't really have that much business acumen. I hadn't realized it. But, when we started the academy, one of the things I did really early on, because I didn't want to take myself away from the kids, was we brought in a CEO. And my role was ambassadorial and commuter at the community and culture. So I was still very niche in my skills. I had an expertise, but it didn't make me a businesswoman. And this is something I identify a lot in entrepreneurs, where you can have a phenomenal expertise, and that's really your primary skill. That's what you really want to be known for. But the secondary skills of running a business is something you really have to acquire and be diligent about. And that's what I then had to do, because, I then fell down again. Digital Academy, we sold it. I then thought, what's next? And I kept on, my identity in my head was connected to this, I'm a big entrepreneur. And that actually, if I took myself back to when I was 33, that wasn't my aim. My aim was some purpose. But I got programmed in a different way. My belief systems have been reprogrammed, I suppose. So it was in 2017 when I had a really big mental shock, which was defined as a PTSD experience. It was for very, very good reasons. When I ended up going to see a psychologist, and I listed 16 things that were at the forefront of my mind that were, as she said, these were traumas. And I thought a trauma was always things that happened to someone else. But when you're around a trauma, I suppose much like a soldier seeing something horrific happen, it might not happen to you, but you hold them as traumas. So not only our financial stress, but personal things that happen in our family. And also we had some really dreadful trolls, which was awful. And my belief systems and my value systems were really all over the place around who I was, what my contribution was, my self-esteem. So I had to explore that and think about, what do I want to spend the rest of my time doing? And that's when I thought, what is the life and business I really truly love? I'm going to get jumped off and go back to the 33-year-old me. What did I really care about? And I deeply care about making entrepreneurs successful, but also making sure they feel loved and that they are significant and that they matter. And that's the loneliness feeling. 61% of business owners in my monthly business health check that I run say that they're lonely, and business loneliness is catastrophic, actually, to the economy. It's awful. And that's what we're going to see a lot of, isn't it, now, through COVID and beyond, in this remote working world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're talking about business owners and entrepreneurs. I think the same applies to CEOs quite often of bigger organizations, even big corporates. A CEO can feel quite lonely and isolated because people don't relate to them in the same way. They can't necessarily guarantee people will give them the truth. If they ask them, want straight answers, they might not necessarily get them. So there's a theme coming through here about business. And I suppose that's where the mental health aspect comes in. So, because you're a real advocate for, supporting business leaders, be it small small businesses and entrepreneurs or bigger organizations. You're a real advocate for ensuring people do look after their mental health. So tell me a bit more about that, Penny, in terms of what your view is on that.
I think my discoveries in 2017 were many. Some of it was about my character. So we have our personality, and I don't want to change my personality. I don't know whether you actually can really change your personality. But there were certain aspects of my character that really weren't working for me, and I needed to look at those. I needed to realign what my own personal ambitions were in my life, and I think I thought I was mentally healthy because people were always saying to me, "Well, that dangerous badge of honor called." Oh, you're so strong. Wow, you're so amazing. How you cope with so much, and I wore that almost as a badge of honor. But it actually meant I wasn't very mentally fit. So mental fitness is very different to a mental health agenda in a way. It's like, you can say, I feel physically healthy. Today, I feel very physically healthy talking to you. I don't have COVID. I haven't got any sore limbs, but am I physically fit enough? I know I'm not. I know, I still creak and, I could be physically fitter. Yeah. I think it's the same with mental fitness. So I am mentally healthy, but I have to work on mental fitness every day. And I think we all do. We all have to work on mental fitness in the same way that we have to eat well and stay physically fit. We don't ignore that. We know if we eat too much sugar or drink, or we're going to feel physically ill, but we don't think about the things that are affecting our mental fitness and how to manage them. And that doesn't mean wrapping yourself in cotton wool and not allowing anything to confront you. It's quite the reverse, actually. It's somebody said to me, your dreams are at the other side of your comfort zone. But it's about how you manage things. So I learned, through my lack of self-esteem and valuing myself, I had no boundaries. Do you know, Mary, I had never even heard the term have boundaries. When somebody said that to me on a walk, a lovely lady called Liz Cashin, she said, Penny, it sounds like you haven't got any boundaries. I thought, well, around my garden?
That's a good metaphor for a boundary, though, in terms of explaining it.
That was fascinating. I talked to another amazing lady, Ruth Paris, who said to me, Penny, when you talk about your life and all the terrible things actually that were done to you, you're never angry. And I said, no, I'm not an angry person. I'm just very loving. And she said, actually, angry doesn't mean you have to take it out on others. Angry means you are saying, this isn't right for me, and I need to react and protect myself. I thought, God, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I learned that resilience doesn't mean just keep allowing people to punch the hell out of you. Resilience, to me, was about how I learned how to avoid those punches. A bit like the most resilient boxer in a ring is the one that can dodge.
Yes. Yes.
And so there was just so many things that I learned from, amazing people. I mean, Mary, you have taught me so much about ego. Another badge of honor I always wore was I don't have an ego because I tell my truth and I'm not very egotistical. But then you and I discovered that I have that just do it now attitude and that perfectionist attitude. You explained to me that comes from ego. That's been revolutionary for me. So that's another real big tick in my box of mental fitness, because you can never take that away from me, Mary. That is the biggest gift you've given me, is understanding how ego is still affecting me.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for that. Well, we all have ego. I want to emphasize that. So, and if we say we don't, then there's something that's like, that might be your ego talking, actually. But anyway, so I'm really, just as you're talking, just the wonderful lessons you're sharing so many lessons today. This is called Lessons in Leadership because you are a leader and you're sharing so much of yourself and sharing so many lessons today. And you're also, for those watching, I hope you're really getting how you make vulnerable. You're so vulnerable, Penny, and what you're doing for me is role modeling vulnerability without being somebody who's falling apart. And I think in today's terms of what we need from leadership is we need leaders who can be vulnerable and who can share themselves in that very resonant way, so that people are reassured they're not on their own. It's perfectly normal to have these anxieties, to have these concerns, and you can still make things happen. You still get up every day, you still deliver, you still have a purpose and a vision that you're fulfilling on. All of that, it's so pertinent.
Yeah. And I think that journey is, whether you're a leader and you have the joy of being able to select the people that work for you, or whether you're a business owner and you're working out what type of clients that you want, etc. The biggest piece of freedom I got was when I really defined with Hannah, helping me on my business brand, is who do I want to spend my life with? What sort of people do I want to surround myself with? And if I wasn't being vulnerable and myself, then how could I resonate with the sort of people that I want?
Yeah.
And so that's been a great thing for me, because when I wrote my book and it was released, and it was very raw and real about the emotional mental journey of being in business. I literally, as I closed, when it was delivered to me, and you've had this experience with your brilliant book, Ego, you unpack it. And I looked at it, I thought, well, that's going to possibly be the death of me as a business person. Because, I took that risk that maybe people will go, oh, no wonder she's found business hard. What a loon.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I'm just sharing it all. But the wonderful thing is that it's actually brought to me lovely people, lovely clients now that, allow me to be myself.
Yes.
And in doing that, I can give more as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So much have you shared with us today, and on a really personal level, it's been wonderful, Penny. I'm going to ask this question because I ask every guest, and but because you've had such a journey, such a rich journey, I don't know how easy it is going to be for you to answer, but is there one moment you can pinpoint that was a real turning point moment that kind of caused you as a leader, that gave you an aha kind of experience of, wow, this is what it's all about? And it's actually affected how you show up and who you are as a leader today?
Yeah, I mean, the first small one I talked about earlier, which was that I was allowed to be who I was. And I think going into business as a young person, you wonder how many graduates now go in and feel like they've got to find a role model and be that person.
Yeah.
So I think that was really important. But it was really a gift that was given to me when I was running Academy. And, that was a big community. And in a way, it was a company of people. It was still a company. It was a company of independent people. And somebody said to me that I epitomized servant leadership. And I thought, well, I don't know what that is. And I thought, well, that sounds like, you lead in order to serve. That's what it sounded like to me. And I studied it a bit to understand it. And I thought, well, yeah, that is my leadership style. But had he not given me that expression, that understanding, I would never have understood it. And it helped me to stay really strong and true to that form of leadership, which I think somebody who was a sales manager for me years and years ago, when I was about 25, she said something similar to me. She didn't use those terms. But to me, when I lead, it's always about the other people's success. It always was. When I was a supervisor, became a manager, became a director, it was always about if everybody that works with me and for me is successful, and I can serve them in order for them to be successful, then we're all going to grow and the organization will grow. And so, and a big part of servant leadership, number 10 in the servant leadership system, is grow community. And it was weird that, there I was growing community, and that's what Thomas and I still love to do.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. That is really wonderful to hear that. And you epitomize servant leadership in terms of how you reach out to people. And certainly my experience of you always is to be supportive in order that, your success is my success and vice versa. Very, very supportive and very collaborative approach, and very much needed in these very volatile, uncertain times that we're leading through as well. So sort of just finally then, is there anything that you'd like to share to our audience today in terms of, we are still navigating our way through very uncertain times. Is there any final words you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, I think, as I said, that I had 16 traumas or mini traumas that were both financial and emotional, with trauma our daughter went through, and premature deaths of my niece and my brother. And, I think that a lot of people now won't really be easily escaping feeling quite unsure of the world.
Yeah.
And when I reflect on that, a lot of us sit in a fear space, because the news certainly gives us fear. I don't know whether it's this job to do that or not, but, I suppose it's trying to take control of the world to make sure that things don't go out of hand, or whatever it is. I mean, there's all sorts of conspiracies about that, but fear is around us, and we can sort of go into it. And this is a little bit of it's a tough story to tell in a way for me, and maybe for people to hear, but I think it's an important metaphor for fear. Is that fear is obviously in our imagination, and none of us really know how incredible we are when we have to go through change. But I can honestly say that adversity has made me a much happier and more fulfilled person. So we can't fear that adversity. And when I talked about my daughter having a challenge, Hannah is very open, as you know, Mary, about what happened to her in 4 years ago when she went skiing and she was taken off the road by 3 men and raped. Now, I got that 5:30 call in the morning, came out of the blue. I went to bed that night thinking, oh, Hannah must be having fun. She's just got off the slopes. I had no anticipation of that. And when it actually came to it, I was phenomenal and Hannah was more than phenomenal. Had we known about it, had we imagined it leading up to it, we would have been in the right state. And I think what I want to say to people is that we are more powerful and more amazing and more creative when we hit adversity than we realize we will be. And so fearing change and things like that, whether it's in your organization or at home, I think that's the limbo stage that people are at that is worse than actually when
Yes. So when
we get into action, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that is an amazing story, and I feel privileged that you've shared that here in this conversation. Thank you, Penny, because absolutely, when you're in the throes of it all, we do sort it ourselves out, and we do deal with stuff on many different levels, emotionally, physically, psychologically. Yeah.
It is, and happiness is at the other side of it. And that, because the self-discovery you make is just phenomenal. The internal pride when you come through tough things and you don't become a victim of it, you take control of it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I feel like that was a real wow way to end today's conversation. Thank you so, so much. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And if they're watching this afterwards, do post your comments, do share with other people, because I think what Penny has shared today is absolutely helpful to all sorts of people who are in business or not in business, as the case may be, because we all have to face adversity in whatever situation we're in. Thank you for tuning in today. Do join us next week. Next Friday. It's the 4th of December. Can you believe it? We're almost at Christmas, and we're being joined by Paul Spears, who I met during his podcast, Principles and Leadership. That's his podcast, the new P&L, Principles and Leadership. And he is all about brand purpose. So he's going to be talking to us about the power of brand purpose. So look forward to seeing you next week, 12 noon on Friday the 4th. Bye for now. Thanks, Penny.